Okay, this is an old encyclopedia from about the 1930s. And this is about chickens, okay? Chickens. This one up here, white leghorn, lays eggs. And what this book says about leghorns are they lay many large white eggs and are very active. This is important. They are too small to be of much value as market poultry. In other words, they're too small to be killed and used as pieces of chicken for you to eat. So they're small birds. One right here. Now this was about 1930, as I said. This. All I want to tell you is, how is it that a small chicken, too small to be used as meat for humans to eat, can lay eggs like this? And way back in like the 1930s, those little chickens could lay over 300 eggs a year. So most days they're going to lay an egg this size, most days. Day after day after day, 365 days a year, and maybe like 310 days of the year they're going to lay an egg. And they're too small to eat them, eat the chicken itself as poultry, as chicken. But eggs, they can make one of these eggs pretty much one a day. What else do I want to show you? Okay, so I looked up these chickens on the internet, and what they said was one of those chickens eats 3/4 of a cup or a 1/4 pound of meal a day. So, how much is that? That is half a cup, and that is 1/4 a cup. Okay, that's how much meal one of these chickens eats in a day. And I can fit this egg into the half a cup container, which means out of the 3/4 of a cup of meal, one half of that, half a cup of that goes to the egg, and this is for the chicken to live on. This is everyday magic. This is magic. How can a little tiny chicken eating this much food in one day turn around and create that egg? I mean, it's not like, a little chicken has got a bunch of these little eggs. Is that how it works? This is a hard shell. So a little tiny chicken, how many of these eggs in a little tiny chicken can be growing at a time inside a little tiny chicken? Because this is a hard shell. It boggles my mind. How did these chickens in one day make an egg? You got it? To me, it seems impossible. It seems impossible. For a human being, okay, something happens and you're roller skating, skateboarding, and you're wearing shorts and you fall down and you scrape your leg. You scrape your knee. It's all bloody. That scrape is not fixed in a day. And that's just a bit of skin. How long does it take for that to be fully healed? 10 days, maybe? I don't know, maybe you're a fast, but it's certainly not 1 day, and that's just the skin. This is an enormous egg. This is an enormous egg. So, how does the chicken make an egg in a day? A little tiny chicken, too small to be used as meat for humans. How did they do it? It seems impossible to me. Birds are incredibly... the other one that struck me last winter, I live in a very cold place in Canada where it gets very cold for months and months and months. And there are birds that live where I am in the cold for months and months and months, deep cold. And it boggles my mind how they are even here. Because I go out in a great big parka and I get cold. And these birds are exposed all the time. And, they'll be up, they'll be on a power line, like a telephone cable in the backyard, and they'll sit there in the cold all day long, day after day. At nighttime, the birds disappear. They fly east, and if they're crows, I guess they go to a rookery, or they hang out together, I guess. But all day long, with the wind howling, somebody's going to say, well, it's just, that's why they use goose down in your parka, because it traps air and it's very good insulation. Yes. What else? And we learned in high school that in a bird's legs, that the heated blood goes down towards the toes and the blood comes back up, and there's a heat exchanger, just like in like a heating and air conditioning unit that's used in a modern house. That's how it's supposed to work, to keep the heat in. And I gotta keep telling Bear, DJ Bear, the ghost keeps bothering me right now. Just like talking in my head. It's horrible. Is that a miracle? I don't want to talk about it. Anyways, he wants to let you all know that he's here and that he's a real pain in the ass. Okay, what else are we talking about? So, the crow, they've also got a face, the crow's eyes and the beak or the bill. I mean, it's totally exposed to cold all day long. Is the bill like your fingernail or your hair? There's no sensory apparatus in it. Is it dead? Is the bill dead tissue? Like, your teeth are hard, but we know that your teeth are serviced by your blood supply. You still have... So, I mean, is a bird's bill completely immune to 30 below weather all day long? How does the crow produce enough heat to stay alive in a northern climate in the winter? Well, it boggles my mind because they hang out in my neighborhood and there is no food in my neighborhood for them to eat. They'll be up there for hours and hours on the power line, not eating food. They don't. they don't eat food. And, if a little chicken needs 3/4 of a cup of high nutrition chicken feed, they need this much when they're in a, controlled environment, that crow is going to need at least this much food. At least this much food. And they stay out there all day long not eating. I watch them. They don't eat. And there's nothing for them to eat. There's snow on the ground. Somebody says, well, maybe they're eating like crab apples. Those crab apples are like golf balls. They are frozen solid. You couldn't open them with your teeth. It's like, if you're going to try and crack an ice cube, those are frozen crab apples, frozen berries. Bird feeders? No, there's not enough bird feeders around. There's bird feeders in my backyard, and they're made for smaller birds than crows. So the crows don't come to eat them. Sometimes they'll come by and look to see if there's something that's been spilled in the ground, but they really don't feed there. And the spillage is so tiny, and it gets lost in the snow. So somebody said, well, some human is feeding the crow. In a park years ago, there was a woman who brought breadcrumbs for the birds. And then someone ratted her out to the city. And the city made it known to everybody in town, don't feed birds, even in the winter. It's not good for them. They put up a sign in the park that says, bread is of low nutrition. Don't feed the birds. That's asinine, because I eat bread myself. I eat bread. And is there no nutrition in it? It's full of starch. That's nutrition. So the city is full of shit. They're horrible, mean-spirited. But, put that all aside. Clancy still wants to let you know that the ghosts are still here with me. I'm not all alone. But put that all aside. That person that used to bring a little bit of bread, I don't know, maybe they would bring some stale bread, so maybe 6 slices of bread a day to feed the whole population of crows. Even in my neighborhood, there is probably 40 crows. She didn't feed, and there was only the one lady who got ratted out. Nobody else was feeding the crows. There is no food for these damn crows. It's too cold. It's impossible for these crows to be alive in winter where I live. And yet there they are. So are they robot crows? Well, I don't know. Like, who's plugging the crows into, like, the batteries? How are they charging up the batteries? It doesn't make any sense. Nuclear? No, it's just like the crows. The crows cannot exist, and yet there they are. Everyday magic. Everyday magic. Everyday magic. It's magic. It's impossible. It's impossible. Okay, the next one I'm going to give you is a human. For quite a while, years, I worked in a nursing home with old people. And there was one old lady who I looked after, and I was there on that floor 5 days a week. And I knew this lady quite well as to her habits. She couldn't get out of bed on her own. She didn't have the muscle strength. So she had to be transferred into a wheelchair, and she was wheeled into the dining room for breakfast and for lunch and for dinner. And I was there on various days for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snack times. This lady, about 89 years old, barely ate anything. Barely ate. We tried really hard to get her to eat because we're caregivers, But I'm not eating. I'm not eating. She's like, put your head away and put your head away to the side like a little baby that doesn't want to eat. That's what this woman was like. There's other people like that. But she didn't want to eat. She would have a cup of tea. She liked tea. How much of her plate, a full-size adult male plate, would be served to her, and dessert? She wouldn't eat. She wouldn't eat, like a few spoonfuls at breakfast, a few spoonfuls at lunch, a few spoonfuls at dinner, and let's say 3 cups of tea. And at snack time, she might have a cookie. Yeah, apparently you don't need very much food to survive as a human being, because she barely ate. But here's the kicker. After lunch was the time when she moved her bowels. We got to know, just because we have to put adult Pampers on them because they are incontinent, which means they have no control over peeing and pooping. So after lunch, we would bring her to her room, and we would put her on the toilet because we knew she was going to go. And she would sit there, and she would have her poop. Now remember, she barely ate anything. Hardly anything. How much did she eat? Let's go generously. She ate that, well, let's say double that. Let's say she really ate a cup and a half of food. How much poop did she put out in a day? She pooped as much as I do, if not more, probably more than I do on an average day. A full-grown male, and she was like a 110-pound skinny little lady. The amount of food that she ate in a day versus the amount of poop that came out of her, it's not in balance. It's not in balance. How can you poop that much when you barely ate all day, day after day after day after day? The same. It wasn't like one day she gorged herself and then it came out over a number of 4 days. She barely ate. She barely ate, and she had enormous poops. So the conclusion that I must keep coming back to is, Bear keeps wanting to let you know that he's still here to annoy me. You are living in a magical realm. It's magic. It's magic. It's magic. Because these stories I keep telling you, to the rational mind, they're impossible. It is impossible for a teeny little chicken to produce a big egg like this every day. So what conclusions can we draw from this proof that we live in a magic realm? If we could only harness the magic in our everyday lives, we could I guess we could be living like, the wizards in Harry Potter or something. Because it seems to me that that is our potential, given the everyday magic that I see. In other words, we should be looking at this book I got at the library, Spontaneous Healing Cures. Somebody else wants to say, okay, well, how, if it's not magic, a magic is kind of like folklore. It's like something from King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. How can you explain it scientifically? Scientifically, we're going to go into, as I said in my last talk, Star Trek, The Next Generation, and the holodeck. I can only conclude that we live in a simulated reality known as a holodeck. So are we real and we're living in a holodeck? Or maybe we are hollow 3D holograms in a holodeck reality. Because remember, for that little tiny chicken, too small to be used as food for humans, when you buy a chicken breast or chicken wings, too small for that, but it can make an egg like this every day. Well, if the chicken is a creature of the holodeck, like in Star Trek, then this is a computer-generated egg. And if I'm going to crack this egg, put it in a fry pan, cook it up, and eat it, my conclusion is that my body is a computer-generated thing. Because if I have a real biological body, but I'm eating eggs that come from a computer-generated hen, I don't see how I can eat a computer-generated thing. It's like computer-generated in a movie, CGI. The famous examples are in Star Wars movies. At least two of the characters, Carrie Fisher and the actor who played Grand Moff Tarkin, in the later movies, those actors were dead. So the computer generated their images for the movie. So, in Star Trek Voyager, they had the emergency medical hologram known as the Doctor character. He was a hologram and he could interact with the humans. He had physicality. And then eventually he got an emitter that let him wander around the ship outside of... I think we've been had, folks. I think something is being hidden from us in plain sight, and that is I don't want to really tell you what it is because, is it either magic or is it computer-generated bodies that we have? God, each one of us. And as the famous science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke said, sufficiently high technology and magic are indistinguishable. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and share. I'm sure I'll come up with other things. I don't really come up with them. They're given to me by whatever it is that gives me the words and the thoughts. The mystery deepens.